Did Daredevil continue on the trail of quality this week, or did it drop off a little bit? I'm not too sure. Let's go ahead and talk about it, and we'll see what we come up with. So the episode kicks off, and it looks like there are a few gangsters that were at one time under Vanessa and under Fisk, and they stop this car in the middle of the road, and they end up saying, "Hey, I'm going to need your keys to this vehicle. I'm going to need your wallets." One of the guys like, "Sure, here's the keys, here's the wallet." The other guy's like, "No, do you know whose car this is? Like, I'm not going to give you these keys." So they kill him. They kill him right there. They take the keys, they take the wallet. And these gangsters that did that were previously working in the families that we mentioned in the previous episode here. And with Vanessa no longer involved, they think they can kind of run ragged, stuff like that. They talk about that a little bit more in the episode later on. But these men right here in particular, they were currently working for Fisk and they got taken out. So next scene is we have Fisk and Vanessa having an awkward lunch here. Their relationship is still rocky. There's a lot of tension here. They're still going to therapy. There's a lot of things going on that I'm not really sure of. You know, this episode talks a lot about Fisk saying, "I don't know if I can trust you. Don't put me in a position to where I can't trust you." And she's basically saying, "Well, you're punishing me for Adam." I still don't know who Adam is. If I'm overlooking it, let me know in the comments, but I believe it just hadn't been revealed yet. I'm not sure who that is. So it could be something later on that we're going to figure out. The next scene I thought was a really cool parallel. In the last episode, we pointed out how Fisk had blood on his hands and are on his knuckles when he was sitting at the table. I thought that was a decent detail. Well, in this episode, you see Murdock washing blood off his hands. He's got blood on the same spots of his knuckles that Fisk had last episode. I actually thought it was Fisk washing his hands, but it was Murdock after the fight scene that he had with the cops at the end of the last episode, just basically washing it off. The cop comes in and stops Matt and says, "So you're a blind lawyer that can fight? That's kind of odd." And basically, he's the dirty cop. Matt's like, "Hey," basically threaten him like, "What you're saying isn't going to get you any further than, anything." Basically saying, "Don't say nothing to me. You're not going to win this." Basically kind of revealing to him like, "Yeah, I can see just about, but nobody's going to believe you. It's ridiculous." So I thought that was pretty cool. He did pretty much all but tell him he's Daredevil. So I was like, oh shit, we're kind of warming up here. So Matt has the court hearing with the officer. The officer's testifying. He's up there. He's, lying his face off. He's putting together his best case. And, it sounds pretty good for the people in the crowd. It sounds like it makes sense. But they finally get Torres in, which is the guy that they were beating up in the first episode. They basically said, "No, Hector pushed the guy in front of the train, yada, yada, yada." So this guy ran away. They finally got him there. They had to jump through a few hoops. They had to trick him because they actually sent that same cop that was testifying out to stop them from bringing that witness in. They said, "We can't let him testify." And they set up this whole thing. There was a decoy. They ended up getting him in. Torres testified. But what was crazy is under oath, he denies being in the subway station. So he's totally afraid of them. It just goes to show you how dirty the cops are in New York during this time. So then we cut to underneath a bridge. You see one of the guys that work for Fisk. He is underneath there. He runs into him. He's like, "Hey, here's 1.8 million. These are the guys that kind of stopped the car at the beginning of the episode and took them out. They were responsible." And he said, "Hey, 1.8 million. Don't do that no more. We can't have this going on because it looks bad for Fisk. They want it taken care of." We find out later that it was actually Vanessa that sent them to do that. And that's when Fisk was like, "Hey, don't make me not trust you. Like, we can't do this anymore." This also leads Fisk to telling Vanessa that sometimes peace needs to break so chaos can reign for a little bit so that they can build a better, tomorrow. A better peace is what he's aiming for. So this is where things get a little bit interesting as we cut back to the courtroom. This whole episode was a little bit slow, guys. There were some cool shots in here. I thought the filming was phenomenal. I thought everything was great. The acting was great. The story, it made sense for the story to have this for the White Tiger story as well, because here's what I'm looking at. I think they're fast tracking Hector's White Tiger so that they can get the current White Tiger in. So to do that, they have to go through his storyline. So they figure out, since Torres denied upon oath that he was in the subway, they had no other choice. Matt, he had no other choice but to out Hector as the White Tiger in front of the whole courtroom. Everybody kind of goes nuts. It's public knowledge. Even the judge was freaking out. He called him and he said, "Hey, what are you doing in my courtroom? You can't do this." But this actually ends up helping Hector. But while this is going on, they kind of pan and they show Hector's wife. They also show the niece of Hector, which is the current White Tiger in the comics. So clearly she's a little bit too young to be the current White Tiger in the comics, but I think they're just gearing it up for more Young Avengers stuff. That's what they're doing. They're like steamrolling to Young Avengers. So, I mean, it makes sense. White Tiger would be a great addition, but then they have people come in, police officers, case files, random people on the streets testifying and saying just what type of person White Tiger is, how they help them, how they save their lives, how he basically did it just because it was the right thing to do. This is actually swaying the people in the courtroom to take his side. So while they're coming up with the verdict, Hector talks to Matt. He's like, "Dude, that was not your secret to tell. I mean, it just wasn't." So, which I agree with that, but you know, Matt being Daredevil, he knows exactly kind of what he was getting into. He tells him the mask doesn't make the man. Matt is pretty much talking to himself there. It reminds me of what Tony Stark said. I mean, if you're nothing without the suit, then you don't need the suit. You know what I mean? So it just kind of, it was like a throwback to that old Tony Stark line. So I appreciated that, just kind of like where we're at now. The MCU's in a totally different spot, but you know, those words still hit heavy, even to vigilantes. So Hector is found not guilty on all accounts. He is a free man. So obviously Fisk sees this on TV because he's kind of orchestrating a lot of this stuff and a lot of the hate on the vigilantes. He has no want of them in the city. He's the mayor and it's his city, and he's like, "Nah, we're not doing any of this White Tiger Daredevil bullcrap." So as he's having a conversation with the press, he's basically saying, "I made a promise that I got to follow up on." And you know, parallel to this, you're seeing Hector walk down the street, White Tigered up. He hears crying come from one direction, comes from another one. He's trying to figure out which to help out. He steps out onto the street, and out of nowhere, this guy steps out and blows his brains out. He's gone. Just like that, we go through 3 episodes of Hector. He is no more. He's gone. White Tiger is killed in this episode, and it kind of pans to the guy walking away. And very briefly, you see the skull on the chest, and it's meant to basically tell you that that is Frank Castle, Punisher's return. I don't think that's Punisher, and I'm gonna tell you why. I think it's the Dirty Cops. They have that tattoo on them that is signifying that they kind of respect Punisher, that they're trying to be like him, but they're not, you know, and I think it's like a false tribe that he's inspired. And this is just another cop kind of taking that logo and killing White Tiger right there on the street. So instead of this being the big return of the Punisher, I think it's going to inspire him to make a return just because he's like, "Hey, somebody's using my logo and killing police officers and doing all this bad stuff. I want in on taking them down." So I think that's why he comes back and communicates with Daredevil, and they kind of work together. This is also going to make sure that Matt becomes Daredevil again. I mean, he got very close to Hector in this whole story here, and I think that he's just going to kind of enrage from this, and we're going to see Daredevil in next episode. But also, Frank would never work with Kingpin. I mean, he just would not work with Kingpin. It's just not going to happen. He's also not just like a random vigilante killer, you know, like he's not going to go work with the dirty guys. Like, Frank is neither a hero or a villain. He's kind of right in the middle. You know, he is a hired gun in some situations, but I don't think this would happen, especially he knows Matt Murdock, he knows Daredevil. He would know that he's on the case with him. I just don't think that this really makes sense here. And if they do, you know, we'll find out next episode kind of what happened here, but I just don't think it is. I think it's a setup. I don't think it's him. I think they're going to come out and it's going to be a cop taking that mantle. It's going to have a perfect introduction for Punisher to walk in and say, "Hey, don't use my logo. Boom, you're out of here." And they kind of fight through it together. I think that's going to be the best situation. I think that's the best storyline to go here. But overall, man, I really enjoyed the episode. I think it was a slower paced episode. They seem to be starting off pretty slow here, but I get that. It's technically not season 1 of Daredevil, but it's season 1 of Disney's Daredevil, you know? So we're starting off as if it's a new series. So I'm trying to keep in mind with that. And we're just going to have to see where they go. Overall, I'd say it was about like a 7.5, 7 out of 10. You know, it was a solid episode, and it was needed for the story, but it was nothing that really just made me like jump out of my seat until I saw the Punisher logo. Cause you know, at first glance, I was like, oh dude, it's Punisher, but it's not. I mean, I don't think so, at least. So I'm not going to get hyped over that, but just seeing the logo on it and it being a Disney project, I think that that's just super cool. So I don't know, man. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Of course, we're going to be covering Daredevil every week, and I'm getting excited for it. So appreciate you guys watching. Drop a comment down below if you enjoyed. Catch you guys later.